TGIF, everyone. Welcome into the First Call podcast. He's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk, representing First Bet and Express Bet. And what a weekend we've got as the First Racing Tour makes two stops, one at Gulfstream on Saturday for Fountain of Youth Day, and now the rescheduled Big Cap Day on Sunday at Santa Anita. Jeff, are we going to keep the wet weather away? I know Saturday's a washout, but let's look ahead to Sunday.
Well, I hope it doesn't rain hard enough so that we don't lose grass on Sunday. The cards are going to stay intact for Sunday, and this main track really dries out great. So I'm not worried too much about the dirt races, but I want to be able to save some of the grass races on Sunday here at Santa Anita. It is really going to pour again on Saturday. So we moved the race back to Sunday, the big race back to Sunday. But that's okay, because now we have great racing on Sunday here at Santa Anita and terrific racing around the country on Saturday. So we definitely get back-to-back days that we can kind of dive in with enthusiasm.
The big cap, the big one on Sunday, but the 3-year-olds are in the spotlight this time of year. We know that. Fountain of Youth Day at Gulfstream. We've got the Gotham at Aqueduct, the John Battaglia Memorial run at Turfway, and then on Sunday, the San Felipe will be run at Santa Anita. So 4 different Kentucky Derby points preps and horses that are aiming towards the Derby, the Preakness, and the Belmont Stakes are going to be in action this weekend, and you can bet them this weekend in the Preakness Future Wager, the first ever early season Preakness Future Wager. Last year, the Preakness Future Wager debuted the week before the Kentucky Derby, handled more than $300,000. Good handle yesterday, more than $35,000 on the first day of wagering. So that was interesting to me, as I think we're going to hit easily a 6-figure pool over the next 2 days, as Saturday night at 8 p.m. is the closing time for the first pool of the Preakness Future Wager 2024. Nisos, the 2-to-1 morning line favorite after, or the 2-to-1 actual betting favorite after the first day of wagering. We're going to talk Nisos in just a little bit. For the benefit of those of you watching on YouTube and across our channels on X, be sure to hit the like button, hammer that thumbs up, if you will, to help us build the audience. Repost this on X for us as well. And also for those of you listening on our traditional audio channels, let's go through the schedule of races we'll talk about on this week's edition of the First Call podcast. We'll go to Aqueduct to start things off for the Gotham, 1 mile for the 3-year-olds in that one. To Gulfstream Park, where there are stakes races up and down the line, 9 of them in all. Jeff singled out 3 of them for you: the McDermott, the Devona Dale, and the Fountain of Youth. We'll look at those 3 races. Then we'll turn our attention to Sunday, as the rescheduled Santa Anita card will feature the San Felipe, the Kilroe Mile, the Santa Anita Handicap, and a wrap up with the Buena Vista. Big weekend for tournaments and some changes in the tournament schedule this week. The $6,000 Ultimate Betting Challenge, that's always been on the calendar. That was a Gulfstream and Santa Anita contest in the past. With no racing at Santa Anita on Saturday, the Ultimate Betting Challenge stays. It's just the Gulfstream contest. But because we know there's a lot of players who love to play Santa Anita in the tournament scene, we've added a tournament at expressbet.com and on track on Sunday for the Big Cap Challenge, $1,500 on Santa Anita Handicap Day to play in that one. So high roller tournament players get a couple shots this weekend. The Ultimate Betting Challenge, you can qualify for that today in just a $600 tournament. Try to get in with the feeder tournament today at Santa Anita for the Ultimate Betting Challenge coming up on Saturday. The Ultimate Betting Challenge qualifier today, or the feeder tournament, is the Gulfstream Park races. So Jeff Siegel, let's talk about all the big races we've got coming up this weekend, the wagering opportunities that go with them. Preakness Future Wager, you and I did that a bit on our Tuesday podcast as we looked ahead to the Preakness Future Wager on the It's Official podcast. And, you know, Nisos is going to be a favorite in that particular pool. He's not eligible to run the Kentucky Derby. So I think the excitement to bet on Nisos is going to be high. He's going to be a big favorite this weekend as well. So he's going to be fresh on people's minds. But you're not going to see him run now until after the Preakness Future Wager closes. So there's nothing stopping him from being the Preakness favorite.
For sure, and he'll only have 2 races to go. He'll have the race this weekend, and then most likely the Santa Anita Derby, I would think, and then he'll have 6 weeks off in between that and the Preakness. But he's such a good moving horse, and he trains so hard, so well, I should say, not hard, but well. I don't think the layoff would bother him in the least. So chances are reasonably good that he'll make the race. And if he does that, I would imagine that he will be favored. Although, I don't know how much less he would be at 2-to-1, depending on what happens between now then and with the Derby horses. So I
Sure.
don't know if there's any great value in doing that, but I understand why he's the favorite. He should be.
Yeah, you better get at least double the price you anticipate if you're going to start playing at
Absolutely.
least this far out. And a horse who has 2 starts yet to go, I think you need even more than that. I like the horses with 1 start left to go, try
Right.
to get double your price. But with 2 starts to go, you better start inflating that and pumping a little bit of air into what you perceive to be value, because a lot can go wrong when a horse has to make 2 more races before the destination gamble. Let's talk Triple Crown Trail for the Gotham Stakes. This is the feature race on Saturday at Aqueduct. Wet conditions expected in New York. Chances of an off track are very high for the Gotham Stakes, so maybe handicap for the wet going. The Gotham Stakes, a 1-turn mile, grade 3 event here. Now, the Gotham is not a race that's had a lot of success in producing the Kentucky Derby winner. You know, it's been Secretariat in 1973 since we've seen a Gotham winner come back and win the Kentucky Derby. But some horses out of this race have done all right in recent years in other legs of the Triple Crown Series. We'll see. I mean, we've had the 2-turn race in the Withers at Aqueduct already. So did those horses want to cut back and go to the mile? We're going to see one of those do so in El Grande O. But for the most part, the Withers horses are going to await the Wood Memorial now and stay at that mile and an 8th trip. So new faces coming into the scene for the Gotham is really the story, Jeff.
It is, and we've got 2 horses here that look alike. Just a Touch, who won his debut back in January over a sloppy track. I think that's significant if it is going to have a wet track on Saturday. You have Deterministic launching a comeback for Christophe Clement, very visually pleasing in his victory at Saratoga last August. Coming back in the Gotham, that's a sign of confidence as far as I'm concerned, with a work tab at Payson Park that should have him fit and ready. Don't know how good he is, but he's by Liam's map, should love an off track if it shows up. One horse we did lose, unfortunately, though, was Slider. He was sent back by John Salader running this race after finishing third in the San Vicente. He will be scratched, came up with a foot problem this morning. So losing him, which is too bad, because I wanted to see how he fit with these horses and get a little bit of a comparison going. Then you got El Grande O, who's a very, very nice horse, a New York bred. Numbers are a little bit shy than where I think he needs to be, but he's still a decent sort of horse. This is actually a very, very good race. But from what I could see, and again, you know how prejudiced I am for the Curlins. Well, I'm getting to be that way with the Justifies, which is to say that I just pick them blindly, you know. And this Colt by Justify, he won his debut for Brad Cox over a wet track, and visually he was very, very pleasing. And he earned a big number in the process. So because he has a recency edge on Deterministic, I think I went with him on top, and I expect him to run really, really well at a distance that should be perfect for his pace stalking style.
Let's go back to Just a Touch in that one and only start to date. As Jeff said, splashing home on top, John G. Dooley on the mic.
And Gun Party looks to engage with the rail. Just a Touch and Silver Halo in the final quarter of a mile. Half mile, 46.10 seconds for Florent Giroux, this newcomer. And it's Just a Touch who's pulled clear from Silver Halo. Gun Party's now second with Capital Connection. Evan on Earth is 1 pace now. They're close to home. It's Just a Touch. Just a Touch at 1-2. Just a Touch. A first out victory by 4. Gun.
He's one of 4 Brad Cox trainees in the field. He's got the 1-3 finishers out of the Jimmy Winkfield, the 6-furlong sprint, stretching out to the mile. Then he has one of the horses that are cutting back out of the Withers, that being a horse I've been very high on named Lightline. This is a horse by City of Light, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile and Pegasus World Cup winner. Love that brilliance on top. And then the stamina on the bottom. His damn upper line was 1.5 mile turf stakes horse, won big stakes at Keeneland going long on the grass. I love that kind of profile. I thought this was a Wood Memorial horse. I'm not sure why we're cutting back from the 1 1/8 to the mile. I don't like Lightline in this particular spot. I thought he was a horse for the Wood. I don't like going 2 turns, 1 turn, 2 turns if you're trying to develop a Triple Crown horse here. So I'm not quite sure I like the plan with Lightline in this spot, and I certainly don't like him cutting back to a sharper race like a mile. So I'm against him in this particular spot, but if he runs well and goes on to the Wood Memorial, I'd like him more next time.
I don't get it. I think what you said is true. You just run 1 1/8. Now you're backing up. It's not like Brad doesn't have anything else on the race. I always wonder, you know, this is the 5th start this horse has run, and all 5 races he's had a different jock. So I don't know whether he just threw him in there just as protection, whether he's actually going to run. There's certainly enough 2-turn races around the country that he could point for.
He's run all 2 turns. He's never run around 1 turn. So
I don't understand
weird
that.
time to do it, I think.
Yeah, and again, this is a quality race. This is I mean, we mentioned about these horses may not be Derby type horses because of the history of the race, but it doesn't mean these horses aren't good. They are good,
right?
And that's why I'm saying I'm very curious to see what Just a Touch does. Deterministic, a few others in here that have a right to run well. And then again, if they do run well, you can always say, well, it was the off track. So, if that fact, it will be. But I'm still very interested to see this race. It could have some really nice horses in it. Bergen, another Brad Cox horse coming off a muddy track win in the Wingfield. I think he's pretty good as well. I think he certainly can get a mile. So there you have it. I mean, it's just a competitive race.
Let's turn our attention now to Gulfstream Park, as we've got 3 races for you to handicap: the McDermott, the Devona Dale, and of course the featured Fountain of Youth. Fountain of Youth Day at Gulfstream Park includes all these stakes races, 9 of them in all, 150,000 and up, including the $400,000 Fountain of Youth, the featured race, which will go on the end of a 14-race card. And a big day for playing exactas at Gulfstream Park. If you're playing with First Bet and Express Bet, boy, do we got a deal for you. If you can hit 6 exactas on the 14-race card, that's exactas in 6 different races of the 14, you're going to share in $25,000 in bonus cash, $20,000 split to anybody who hits 6 or more exactas. If you hit the most exactas of any player in the contest, you're going to share in $5,000 in bonus money. Last week, we ran the same promotion for the same amount of money at Oaklawn Park during the Rebel Stakes. Each player took home about $388 in additional money that hit 6 or more exactas. Then there were, I believe, the number of players were 7 or 8, I think, that hit hit the most and shared that $5,000 bonus. They each took home another $700 or so. So a good way to pad your bankroll. I mean, it's free money added to your account balance. Swell it up. Play exactas this weekend. And for a little help on betting the exactas this week, we put a little all-star exacta team together. Myself, Jeff, Brian Nato, Ron Nicoletti from Gulfstream Park. You can check that out in the blog section at expressbet.com and at news.first.com, where we give our all-star exactathon picks for each of the races. So all 14, we divided the races up there. Check that out, the exactathon, only with First Bet and Express Bet. And Jeff, I like the sound of free money. So let's get some exacta money going for the McDermott Stakes. It's race number 7 on the card, the first of 3 that you chose to handicap here for the podcast. Where are we looking in this one?
Well, I'm going to look at 3 horses. I think Main Event is going to make the running from the rail. He got run over in the Pegasus, but this is a whole different pace concept for him. And he did win the Fort Lauderdale 2 races back. So he's the kind of horse where if you leave alone, he can take you a long way, and he's won 3 out of 5 at Gulfstream. So I used him. Tawny Port, who was going to probably draft over and sit second, and he can win a marathon. He won at Saratoga, won the John's Call. Again, was a little disappointing at Keeneland, but he's fresh, coming back for Christophe Clement, which always makes him dangerous. He's 6-1. Main Event is 8-1. So a couple of good prices there to use in your exactas. And then my top selection is Headline News, who is Curlin Gelding, who has never been a mile and 3/8, I should say. He's never even been in the stakes. But if you look at his form, he's 5 years of age. He's a late developer, as many of the Curlins are. But every race he runs better. I mean, his Bayard numbers have gone from 66 to 79 to 81 to 94 in his last start. He closed against Slow Fractions last time, going a mile, a good allowance race. They went the first half in 47-3. The second half was 45-4. He rallied from well out of it, was finishing fastest of all, galloped out in front. He's really coming around, and Jimmy Toner's got him in this mile and 3/8 race, switching to Jose Ortiz. Really working out. I haven't seen the works, but they look really good on the form. I think Headline News is ready to step forward again. Tell me he's 12-1 on the morning line, and I'm going to get to 12-1. I don't know about that, but I really think Headline News is going to be in the frame somewhere and maybe even win it all. I think this is an excellent gambling race with those 3. Then I can come back and just maybe put them in the win pool as well. So Headline News, Main Event, Tawny Point. I think that those are Tawny Port, I should say. I think those 3 comprise a really, really good, attractive exacta or trifecta box if you want to play that too.
Yeah, I think you're going to get a fair price on him. I mean, we're looking at a field size that's moderate in here with 10. You're going to get bet on Tawny Port for sure. The main event's going to take some action dropping out of the Pegasus. The horses coming out of the McKnight. We don't have the McKnight winner back, but we got some horses that were on the board in that race, like starting over. So, yeah, you might get the price stepping up first time in class. One thing about veteran trainer Jimmy Toner, he's always really good with the turf horses, and he's also very patient. He doesn't bring them along to the big races until it's time. So when he says it's go time, I think it's worth following and listening to there. Let's go to race number 9 next up at Gulfstream Park. It's the Devona Dale Stakes. The 9th race on the card is a 1-mile event for $200,000. The Devona Dale, a prep towards the Kentucky Oaks. And we'll see if we've got an Oaks filly in here, because we've got the reigning champion 2-year-old from last year, the winner of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Just FYI.
Just FYI to the outside. Jody's Pride between them. Candide is coming 5 wide, and they're into the stretch. Just FYI. Tamara to the inside now has given way. It is just FYI in front from Jody's Pride, and Candide on the outside. Camera is back to 4th. Just FYI, Jody's Pride, and on the outside, Candide. Here is the wire. Just FYI, she's a champ.
Jeff, sometimes you got to watch replays back because your memory will kind of glorify something sometimes. I remembered her winning that race a lot more convincingly. It was closer at the finish. I liked her that day. She won, paid a nice price. So maybe my excitement in rushing to go cash a ticket was the reason I felt like it was more dominant than it was. But it was a very good win for her, where Tamara was expected to be, the big favorite in that race. And she just didn't fire and obviously went amiss there. So what do we make of the return for Just FYI as she comes back in this 1-turn mile?
Well, sometimes you have to look at the race and remember why you liked it as much as you liked it. And the reason why I liked it is because she had the 12 hole and going with 12 runners in it, and was able to get over and press a 22-2, 46 and change half.
Yeah.
I didn't think she could put away Tamara and continue on and do that. And that, to me, was a wow race, even though it looked like she was life and death to do it. But that's a tough gig from way out there at Santa Anita.
The hard work was done early, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, she had every reason to. Now, of course, at the time, I didn't know Tamara came out of the race worse for wear. But for her to get over from the 12 hole, put her away, as good a filly as Tamara was going in, that's what I remember. And now she comes back for Bill Mott, who, by the way, according to the stats I'm looking at in the DRF, 27% with a massive flat bet profit with layoff horses. Yeah. And if you look at her work pattern over the deep Payson Park track, series of good, solid works. They don't work fast there at Payson, but you can get really fit there. And a 1-turn mile in a race with plenty of pace, she can kind of sit back, come out of the gate, kind of gather her momentum and just kind of sit and then make one run. And I think that's what they're going to do with her. And while she may not be 100% cranked up, I think she's going to outclass this field, especially in a race in which the race shape is going to be in her favor. I also wanted to mention, if you're looking for an exacta partner in this race, look at Queen's Martini, who I think might be a really good 1-turn type of horse. And she's going to lay back and be apart from the pace, which I think could be contested. Leslie Rose is going to bust out from the inside. She'll show speed. There's a few others in here. Fiona's Magic, into Champagne on the outside will be close up. I think this race is going to set up nicely for some horses that can settle in the mid-pack. Just FYI can do that. And I think Queen's Martini can be doing that as well. So those are the two. But I expect Just FYI to come back as well as she left. And that makes her, in my way, thinking the horse to beat, and maybe not a great gamble at 7-5, but I think she's got a very good chance to win.
Fun race, field of 8 with 3 undefeated fillies. The rubber will meet the road. We'll see what happens when all those undefeateds match up. And Jeff, just for the record at this point, we are 3 races into the handicapping. You now have 2 Justifies and a Curlin.
Well, no, I mean, that's why I was able to do this in 5 minutes. I mean, I don't have to go and look at tapes and stuff like that. Okay, there's a win. I am a creature of habit. If I see a Curlin, I'm not even sure. In fact, I know I'm not even done with the Curlins yet.
All right. Well,
I got another Curlin, I think. So go from there.
All right. Let's turn the page now to the Fountain of Youth Stakes. It's race number 14 on the card, the finale on that big program at Gulfstream Park, again with the $25,000 exactathon. Who might our exacta be in this field of 8 now? 9 entered, but number 6, Merritt, has scratched. Merritt is going to run today in a race 7 allowance race, in a very good one against Conquest Warrior for Shug McGahee that has Florida Derby implications. Race 7 today on Friday as we record our podcast. Race 7 Friday at Gulfstream, one you definitely want to keep an eye on towards the Florida Derby. Merritt, the 6, is scratched from the Fountain of Youth and will run today in that race. So field of 8 expected to go postward in here. You've got Speak Easy coming off the impressive maiden win over Victory Avenue. They draw advantageously, Jeff, and post 1 and 3. Remember, the mile and the 16th races here at Gulfstream Park start desperately near the first turn, so that inside speed is always bolstered in this particular spot, and then it will finish at the 16th pole finish line, so you don't even have to bring all your stamina to the race in this particular case. So early inside speed with the 1 and the 3, and the 5 door knocks got some speed as well. You got to figure those 3 come out of there running.
Yeah, it's an interesting race because you've got Speakeasy, whose hand was drawn actually with the rail draw. He has to go, and when he ran against Victory Avenue was actually quicker than the 2, and I don't think Johnny V's going to be waiting around for anybody. So I think Speakeasy and Victory Avenue, who hooked up in that hot maiden race that they both ran in January 27th, they could hook up again.
Right.
I mentioned Victory Avenue was actually a little quicker. So those 2 could set up things nicely for Dornoch, who could just draft in behind them. Even though Dornoch's got speed and his 2 races that he just won were wire to wire, I don't think there's any issue at all of him sitting third. And the way he's been training, I wanted to see, how he's been looking in the morning to get a kind of a feel as to whether or not he really is cranked up. He is. I mean, he's on the inside here of a filly, and boy, I tell you what, Jeremy. I mean, he looks like he is sitting on go. I mean, he's just breezing here. He's going to go 47 and 4, just cruise control, but he looks like he could have gone in 45 and change if he was turned loose. And Jock just sitting on him here, and just I don't think they wanted anything blazingly faster a week out, but you can see how he's doing it here, just really, really impressively.
And what you want to see with him is a straight line, true, no antics. He was really green last year as a 2-year-old, even in Victory, right? He lost focus in races. He was ducking in. He was ducking out. This is what you want to see. He took his cues right the way that he should. He drew off. No antics, nothing crazy. It's a lot easier in the morning when things are serene and it's calm there at Palm Meadows, obviously. There will be some hubbub involved in the stretch run this week, this Saturday at Gulfstream Park in the Fountain of Youth, with the crowd, the excitement, and competition on his side. So we want to see that development and move forward for Dornoch, because this is the full brother to Mage, last year's Kentucky Derby winner. And interesting, Mage came out of the same race basically that we were talking about with the inside couple horses, Speakeasy and Victory Avenue, which was a 7 furlong maiden special on the undercard for the Pegasus World Cup. He came out of that race and it came on Fountain of Youth Day and ran right in the big race. And Mage made a menacing move to the top of the stretch and just kind of flattened out a little bit. Now, Dornoch, you want to make the comparison with him to Mage because he's his full brother, but he has much more foundation under him than what we saw with Mage at this point. Maybe Mage was a little more brilliant. Maybe Dornoch's more brilliant. You can debate that if you want, but you can't dispute the fact that the foundation for Dornoch far exceeds what Mage brought into this race last year. If you want to make the Mage comparison, you're probably closer with a horse like Victory Avenue or Speakeasy coming out of that 1-7 furlong race. In fact, Victory Avenue, Gustavo Delgado, some of the same owners. This is Team Mage. They thought they were going to take the same path, was win that race back on Pegasus World Cup Day and move on to the Fountain of Youth. Even though he finished second in that race, they're still going forward with their plan with a maiden. Let's give the fans a chance to see that allowance race we've talked so much about. This is Speakeasy and Victory Avenue in the second race on the card back on the 27th of January. Again, this is the race that produced Mage last year, who ended up winning the Kentucky Derby.
Victory Avenue under siege. Here's Speakeasy to have a crack at him from second. Up on the outside, Big City is now third. Batten Down's flattened out a touch. He's back fourth. These top 2 sprint away. On the outside, Speakeasy. Toward the inside, it's Victory Avenue. There's an 1/8 of a mile left, and Speakeasy doing slightly the better work. Victory Avenue tries to go with him. Back to third, Big City, then Batten Down. Final 1/16 of a mile, Speakeasy. And Irene Ortiz Jr., your second race winners. Speakeasy by 2.5. Second, Victory Avenue, third. Big City, then Corporate Power.
So they come back with advantageous draws in post 1 and 3. A horse towards the outside who's going to drop back and make a run is Locked, Jeff. We've gone this far and really haven't talked about the beaten favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Hard to believe with all the good horses we had in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year, this was the favorite, but he was coming off a win at 3 to 5 odds in the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland and back-to-back scores off of his second start win at Saratoga. Locke hasn't done anything wrong. He's a gun runner. This is his first start back as a 3-year-old. But I get the sense you're not very high on him, and neither am I. I've kind of had him in my countdown to the Crown top 20. I've had him down in that like 12 to 15 to 16 rank, even coming into this year. He's going to have to prove it to me. I'm just not enthusiastic about him, and he really hasn't done anything on the resume to make me just say why, but I don't feel the vibe for him. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. At least I don't think you're wrong. I'm kind of like on the same wavelength with you on Locke. Now, I will give him an excuse in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile because he was racing over a track that was you can't come from that far back and win. I mean, that's the nature of Santa Anita's racetrack. You don't have to be in front at Santa Anita, but you better not be more than 3 or 4 lengths back at any stage because then you're being given too much to do. He was third. I actually bet on him that day because I thought his win in the Breeders' Futurity was in the parking lot that day, and he still won. I thought that was good. Numbers-wise, he's respectable. I just haven't been all that enamored with his work pattern or his workouts visually on the comeback trail. He doesn't. I mean, he worked not the other day, but I saw him work last month, and he was just flat. So I'm going to see one from him first. I don't think he's. I don't know. Let him prove it to me. That's how I'm going to. He's 5-2. I'd rather take 2-1 on Dornoch than 5-2 on Locke, according to the morning line. And by the way, just for the record, Dornoch is not by Curlin, but he's by a son of Curlin. So I'm going to kind of count that in my ledger there. But I think Dornoch, one other thing I want to mention at Dornoch is that you talked about how green he was and he kind of lugs in and hits the rail and all that stuff. But in this race, he's going to be following horses, and I don't think he's going to do that. I think he'll be focused on the horses in front of him. Now, if he goes by them too quickly, then he might say antics. But I like the fact that he's going to map out a trip here that's going to be following horses, and I think that's what he wants to do. So let's go with Dornoch here at 2-1. Right. Hopefully, I can get that price, and I'm fairly confident that he's going to run really well.
Yeah, I've got him on top as well. Looking for an exacta play for our exactathon. I'm looking at the 1 and the 3, the 2 speeds inside, one of them holding on for second. And I think Locke is going to make a run in the race. He'll probably be 3rd or 4th in a race that just doesn't favor closers. You talked about Santa Anita on Breeders' Cup Day, not favoring his running style. Mile and 16th races at Gulfstream don't either. Forte was able to get up and win this race last year. Do you think he's as good as Forte on the comeback and stacking up against the competition? I think there are better horses in here than what Forte had to face in his comeback race last year when he was all out to win. So I think Locke's got a tough challenge. If he is up to this challenge, he is a serious 3-year-old because he will run in a race and win a race that he's not supposed to based on the race shape and the setup with the way that track configuration is. So he's a major player locked if he wins on Saturday. I'm against him at this stage in the game. All right, let's turn our attention next. We are going to take things to Santa Anita for the card on Sunday. We've got racing on Sunday at Santa Anita this week. Here are the stakes races that we're going to look at on our podcast. We'll look at the San Felipe, the Kilroe Mile, the Santa Anita Handicap, and the Buena Vista. Big Cap Day at Santa Anita's got 4 major stakes races for you, 3 $400,000 toppers, the Santa Anita Handicap, the Kilroe Mile, the San Felipe for the 3-year-olds, and we'll wrap things up with the Buena Vista, final race on the card for the distaffers on the turf. Jeremy Plonk, Jeff Siegel here on the First Call podcast with our Sunday preview for Santa Anita's big races. Jeff, let's start with the San Felipe Stakes. Mile and a 16th. This is the main local prep race left for the Santa Anita Derby Series with Bob Baffert winning this race seemingly every year. It goes over time. I mean, I did a stat for Countdown to the Crown. In the last 20 prep races at Santa Anita for the 3-year-old ranks, Bob Baffert has 16 wins and 4 second-place finishes in the races he's lost. And, Jeff, of the 4 of 20 that he lost, 2 of them went on to win the Kentucky Derby. Authentic and then Medina Spirit, of course, then subsequently disqualified. But Baffert is just too tough to topple when we talk about the 3-year-olds at Santa Anita, and he's got 3 of the 5 in this year's San Felipe.
And it makes you wonder why other owners or trainers, other than what Bob Baffert has, even bother to send their horses out here to California. They're not going to beat Baffert. They just never have. They never will. And you've got some nice horses in here that are just kind of, I don't know, banging their head against the wall here. But that's the way it is. They're here, so they'll try to run second. I guess nobody's beating Nisos. Nobody can possibly think they're going to beat Nisos if Nisos shows up with anything close to what he's done and the way he's been training, Jeremy. He looks even better, if that's possible, than he ever has. Here's a breeze the other day, and a minute and a fifth, easy as you can be. Never even, I don't know, spending 50% of his energy, if not that.
Yeah.
His leads, coasts home. You can't look any better than this. And it's not like he isn't running great either. So it's not like, oh, well, he's going to run better. No, he didn't have to. This was just eye-opening.
And when you look at Nisos, he's got the 3 victories in the afternoon by 26 combined lengths, including the 2-turn race last time out in the Bob Lewis. So you don't have the 2-turn question. You're just talking about going from a mile to a mile and a 16th. And the horses he ran against in the Bob Lewis, who were all at least 7.5 lengths behind him, you get a couple returnees. Wind Me Up, his stablemate, who was second in that race. You've got McVeigh back, a horse who was probably too close to the pace that day and floundered home a 4th beaten 12.5 lengths. And Scatify, who set the pace that day and gave way at a mile. He's got all turf sprinter on the damn side of his pedigree for Scatify. So the farther he goes, the more I think the gap gets between he and Nisos, And so an extra 16th of a mile is not going to help Scatify in this particular spot. This is a race which really comes down to Nisos in a rematch with the same 3 horses from the Lewis. The fresh face would be Imagination, his stablemate. Let's talk about him for a second, because he actually ran much better last time than expected. He was coming off a solid win going a mile 2 starts back, but he ran against May Moon last time, a horse who a lot of folks are high on, and really one of the horses you want to watch for that Preakness future wager. Not only Nisos, but May Moon. Imagination gave him a tussle in a slow-paced race, and he was able to hang in there. This race is going to have a little more tempo to it, so Imagination's going to have to probably adapt his running style. He's either going to have to run harder and farther, or he's going to have to take off the pace a little bit to be successful. But he's a pretty solid 3-year-old.
He is, and what happened in that race, though, they went very slow, finished out well. Of course, that was the race that Maymoon, kind of blew the clubhouse turn, was ranked. Mm-hmm. Imagination kind of got him, and then Maymoon figured out he was in a race at the 8th pole, and we rallied to beat him. But I think Imagination's a good colt. Again, I'm not really sure why he's in this race, other than to make sure that maybe it fills for Nisos. Yeah. And whether or not Imagination actually runs or not, I don't know. We'll see, because this is a colt that could go somewhere and win a decent race. I mean, he really could. Yeah. And what's the point of finishing second to Nisos? I don't. Unless Bob thinks Nisos is vulnerable, which I know he doesn't. So I don't know. He's in the race, but then Bob also has Wind Me Up in there to cut out the fractions and kind of maybe ensure that there's a decent pace for Nisos. Mm-hmm. He doesn't really need Imagination in there. So I don't know. But that's the way to look. I mean, look at a horse like McVeigh. He's a maiden, okay? First time out, he gets beat by Wind Me Up. Second time out, he gets beat by May Moon. Last time, he gets beat by Nisos.
Right.
What's the point of this? If I owned McVeigh, do you think he'd be in California? There's no way. He'd be somewhere, but not here. And unfortunately, I think that's what happens to our 3-year-old crop here in the West Coast, where the good ones just aren't here, and that allows Bob Baffert to kind of, I don't know, orchestrate the whole thing.
One thing about McVeigh, we're going to go back and watch the replay of the Lewis. He was really floundering. You're going to see him 3-4 wide around the quarter pole, and he looks like he's going to be completely out of it, as he stayed on reasonably well from that point for a horse who looked like he was absolutely done and kind of got things back together. He's had a big workout since. Maybe he's a horse who can improve a little bit here and pass some horses if you're looking for an exacta play in the San Felipe. But let's go back and watch Nisos in total dominance in the Bob Lewis.
Scatify with a quarter of a mile to go has led throughout. Nisos let loose with a huge bid on the outside, though, at the 3/16. Nisos blows by the competition and turns it on. Wind Me Up in a battle for second with Scatify. Nisos passing the two-turn test beautifully, geared down to stroll in by 7 lengths.
It's all Nisos in the San Felipe from Jeff and I. Let's go next to the Kilroe Mile. That'll be race number 7 on the card, back to back. If you're looking to gamble, and we know you are, you might not find the exacta you like in race number 6. So a daily double is really the better way to go because you got a little more field size to work with. And looking at a double in races 6 to 7, you might get more value that way than playing the exacta intra-race with Nisos. So Kilroe Mile up next in the 7th race, Jeff, grade 1, $300,000 purse here. Who might we pair up in a double going back to back behind Nisos?
You know how high I am with on Easter. I mentioned I thought he was as good a middle distance turf horse in North America after he won the San Gabriel. He's now won 3 in a row. 6 years of age, not overly raced. He's only had 19 starts, never been better. 2 for 2 at Santa Anita, and I mentioned he's won 3 in a row. He's got a devastating late kick. He's a closer, but man, can he turn it on? And that late kick he has can be every bit as effective at a mile as it is in a mile and an eighth. In his last race at a mile and an eighth, he had no fractions to run out in that race, but still got up and won for Phil D'Amato. And I thought maybe they might try him in the Pegasus, but Phil said, no, I'm going to leave him in California. Breeders' Cup is going to be our ultimate goal. It's in California. Right. No need to ship around. He's a gelding. We can do whatever we want with him. So I like Easter to win. He's 9 to 5. I don't know whether he'll be that high. I would like to see him being that high, and if he is. I do think Du Jour has got a chance to run really well here for Baffert, even though we haven't seen him since the Breeders' Cup Mile. Just in too tough that day. But I've never seen Du Jour work any better than he's been working. He looks like he's absolutely thriving off the layoff, and I don't know whether he's good enough to beat Easter, but Du Jour is going to run as well as he's ever run. And I think those are the two that are going to absolutely dominate this race.
Goliad will ensure a pace, right? When you have Easter, you want some pace in there. Goliad is just a runoff front runner. He did last in the Thunder Road after opening up a 12-length lead and won that race by 3. We'll see if Kimura can throttle that one down with Richard Mandela, the trainer. And Goliad's going to go flying out of there. You got to think maybe first piece also for Mark Gladden there, coming off sprint races, coming down the hill will have some speed. So the outside of this race could have a lot of speed crossing over in front of others with Goliad in first piece in the Kilroe Mile. But the late run from Easter is the one you're thinking will cash just like it did last time in the San Gabriel.
Top of the stretch, 2 lengths back, War at Sea. Easter on the outside of them. Missed the cut, has been covered up and is having a sweet trip, and he's now coming after Tio Magico as Easter lengthens stride with huge momentum in the middle of the race course. And Easter and Antonio Fresu, 3 straight stakes victories. This time it's the San Gabriel. Missed the cut was a very good second. Tio Magico 3rd, and War at Sea finished 4th.
We turn our attention next to race number 8 as successive stakes races on the card at Santa Anita rock and roll through the 8th on the card. That is the grade 1, $400,000 bid cap. The Santa Anita Handicap run since the first spring that they opened at Santa Anita. The meet opened at the end of 34. The 1935 season saw the Santa Anita Handicap run in the spring, and it's been run every year since. Jeff, this isn't the field of a spectacular bid or an Ali Sheba, but this is a really competitive field when you look at John White's morning line. Basically, everybody between 2.5 and 8 to 1. Not a lot of separation between them. Shape up the 7-horse field for the big cap.
Well, you got several here coming out of the San Pasquale, which was the prep for the race. The race won by New Grange, and he's back. I actually thought that Newgate should have won that race. I didn't think he got a good ride at all. The pace situation was slow on paper. Newgate was coming out of a hot sprint behind Big City Light. About the track at Santa Anita where you could literally give away the race in the first furlong, which is exactly what Joel Rosario did with Newgate when he kind of didn't send him at all. He just kind of took him hold and then lost position, made an extended run against slow fractions to get to Newgrange, who was cruising on the front end, where Newgate should have been, and then wound up second. So I see where Bob goes to Dettori now, and I'm pretty sure you're going to see a more aggressive ride from Frankie on Newgate than he got last time out. So if I were to take a horse out of that last race, the San Pasquale, I would go with Newgate. The question with Newgate, though, for me, is I'm just not sure whether he really is a 1.25 mile horse. I don't know whether that's something that he really wants. But I can tell you a colt that I think really does want it, and I think he is going to move himself into a whole different realm, and that is Highland Falls. There's my Curlin. 4 starts. We don't know what he's capable of doing because he's just kind of beginning his career.
Right.
Curlin out of that good mare Round Pond, and even though he only won his last race by 3/4 of a length, it was a measured 3/4 of a length at Fairgrounds, just an allowance race, but his numbers are fast. He looks like will be screaming for 1.25 miles. Brad Cox sends him out here, and I really think Highland Falls is going to leave his previous form behind and run the race of his life. And I thought I could get a decent sort of price here, but John White can't fool him. He leaves it. No, I mean, he's got him at 3-1, and I thought 5-6-1, but no, 3-1. And you know something? I'll take it if I can get it, because that's how good I think Highland Falls is going to run in this race. And I don't even think he has to improve that much. Toss in the 1.25 miles, which I'm absolutely convinced he'll like. And he's another horse that really has a little bit more tactical speed than maybe it looks like in the form. I watched him in his last race, and he could have been on the lead if Florent Drew wanted him to. Didn't think it was necessary. Right. But he'll be right in the fray. He won't have a lot of ground to make up, and I think he's just going to outstay these horses. So for me, Highland Falls, son of Curlin, to win the Big Cap.
You get Highland Falls, like you mentioned, Curlin, the winner of the Breeders' Cup Classic, Round Pond, the winner of the Breeders' Cup Distaff. You don't get purple on purple like that with those Breeders' Cup champions that often. What a pedigree. First time stepping up into a stakes race for Godolphin and Brad Cox. So the Godolphin Blue will be well represented in the Big Cap, going the 1.25 miles with a good inside draw here, but a small field, so I don't think Post is going to make that big of a deal. It's about tactics and how the race shakes out and who goes. Last time out, it was Newgrange getting the victory, his second straight at the meet. He won the San Antonio, he won the San Pasquale, and he's back against a lot of the same horses in this particular spot. Let's go back to the San Pasquale and check out Newgrange in victory.
They passed the quarter pole and turn for home. Newgate comes after him now. These two are going to square off at the 8th pole. A good effort from Two Rivers over, who's fighting down at the rail, and then Mixto past the 8th pole. Newgrange still in front, 1.5 lengths. Newgate giving it his all, but Newgrange has plenty left in the tank, and it's back-to-back in the San Pasquale for Newgrange under Victor Espinoza. Newgate solid in defeat. Mixto was finishing nicely.
Yeah, not only 2 years in a row winning the San Pasquale, but then winning the 2 big stakes leading up to the Santa Anita Handicap. So a chance for horse of the meet honors for sure for Newgrange if he can sweep those 3 major handicap races. I thought the 3rd place finisher in there, Mixto, is an interesting horse who might be a little bit of a price here because he was like done, came again and galloped out really well in there. Now we're going to 1.25 miles. So as these other horses try to extend and find more, I think maybe Mixto's one to keep an eye on at a price. I don't know if he can win the race, but let's take Jeff's top pick. We'll take Highland Falls over Mixto and see if we can't upset the apple cart a little bit there in the Santa Anita Handicap. To the 10th and final race on the card Saturday at Santa Anita we go. It's the Buena Vista. This will be the final leg of the late pick 4 where we've got a $10,000 hit and split for you. So check out the late pick 4 on Saturday at Santa Anita, where there's a $10,000 late pick 4 hit and split. When you bet with First Bet and Express Bet, hit the late pick 4, get your pair of mutual winnings, and then you're going to share $10,000 with just other players on the platform who also hit the late pick 4. So you definitely want to dial that up. And Jeff, in the Buena Vista, we've got one in here that you've been on this filly for a little while now. Ruby Nell. She comes out of a race in the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf. But prior to that, in the Lady Shamrock Stakes, she was rock solid. Let's let the fans check her out, Ruby Nell, and then you can tell us why you think she's going to win again.
Ruby Nell and Edwin Maldonado, they've been in charge throughout. 2-length lead coming to the quarter pole with Princess Patina in second. Anna Caro is down at the rail. Cleekish losing ground. Justique on the move now. She swings into action as they come to the furlong pole, and Ruby Nell with a 5-length lead. Justique finishing strongly into second, but Ruby Nell is not slowing down, and it's Ruby Nell, another tour de force. She is quite a filly. Ruby Nell outclasses them in the Lady of Shamrock. Justique ran well, but was second best.
You love those kind of just run them off their feet, and that's what she does when she's at her best.
I don't think she'll be in front in this race, though, because Kiss by Fire is coming out of a series of sprints, and she is very, very quick. First time around 2 turns. If Peter Urton allows her to bowl along, she's quicker than Ruby Nell. That's the good news for Kiss by Fire, but the bad news is Ruby Nell doesn't need the lead to win, even though she looks like she's more comfortable when she's allowed to bowl along. But I think with the target to run it, I think Ruby Nell is going to be looking at Kiss by Fire, who I'm not really convinced wants to run this far anyway, and then go on by. Now, in her, I liked her in the Pegasus World Cup. I thought she was going to be on the front end that day based on her Lady Shamrock race, which we just saw, a race in which she went 22 flat, 45 and 2, and 109 and 2. Then in the Pegasus World Cup filly and mare turf, they go 24-4, 48-3, 112 flat, and she's being strangled back full final wall of horses. Stayed on well, but I think by that time Ruby Nell had just gotten mad. I mean, she wanted to go, and she was behind horses. She didn't leave all that cleanly. I don't want to blame the rider because I don't think he wanted to rush her up after a kind of a sluggish start, which, by the way, Ruby Nell has a history of not getting out all that cleanly. So some of that trouble is self-caused. But if she doesn't have to pop the gate, but if she just comes out cleanly, I think she's going to find herself in a great spot and then take advantage of it over a course that she clearly loves. 5 starts, 4 wins in a second. So we know that she's going to like that. And I do think that she's given the trip that I think she's going to get, I think she'll be just fine. 7-2. I like Ruby Nell to win the Buena Vista.
You've got Bella Bell in there. She came back after more than a year off, missed the entire 2023 season, was victorious in the Megahertz Stakes. She's had 5 starts since coming to the U.S. from the U.K., and she's never been beaten in California by a California horse. The 2 horses who beat her were Gina Romantica coming west and McCulloch for Chad Brown running 1-2 in the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup when she went to Keeneland. And then she got beat by Spenderella, who came west for Graham Motion, and when they beat her in the Del Mar Oaks. She's never been beaten by the West Coast fillies. She's good. She's got a versatile running style, and coming back second off the layoff, it'll be interesting to see. Does she bounce off of that race, or does she keep moving forward after missing all of 23?
I don't think she'll bounce. I mean, she got an easy trip on the lead there that day, 3/4 and 13. She quickened nicely through the lane and held sway. She's another one like Ruby Nell and Bella Bell that doesn't need to lead the win. So I mean, we'll see. She's good. I mean, she's 4-1. That's a square price for Bella Bell, and a fresh mare, 5 years of age, but only with 10 starts. 2 for 2 at Santa Anita, 4 out of 10 overall. Pratt rides her back. I mean, she is going to give Ruby Nell all she can handle from the furlong pole to the wire, and she could easily be this good. I mean, it's a good race. I mean, it's a grade 2, but these are among the best that we've got to offer her in this division. It'll be a very, very good race to wager on. You're going to get a solid price no matter who you like.
That's a wrap on the stakes races for Sunday. Rescheduled from Saturday to Sunday for Santa Anita Derby Day, or Santa Anita Handicap Day. Be sure to check out the Big Cap and all the supporting stakes races that go with it coming up this Sunday from Santa Anita. That's going to wrap up our First Call podcast for this Friday. Hopefully you enjoyed the previews of Fountain of Youth Day at Gulfstream, the Gotham Stakes at Aqueduct, and also the big one at Santa Anita, now moved to Sunday, the Santa Anita Handicap Day card. One other stakes race for the 3-year-olds this weekend that we didn't get a chance to talk about is the John Battaglia Memorial. That's coming up Saturday night at Turfway. John White's got that covered in his blog, so be sure to check out John's latest top 10 Derby list, and also where he's got the picks going this weekend for all 4 major 3-year-old preps, including the Battaglia. Check that out at expressbet.com and at news.first.com. And one more promo I want to hit you with, because anytime you can put more money in your pocket, we like to give you that offer. Today, if you're betting Laurel on Friday, bet $100 on the Laurel card, get $20 back, a 20% rebate up to $100. Bet $100, get $20 back if you bet on the Laurel card today. If you're not familiar with Laurel and you want a little help, we've got one of the old Laurel experts on our staff, Frank Carulli, former morning line maker for the Maryland Jockey Club. He's got the races handicap for this weekend, so be sure to check out Frank's blog for Friday's races at Laurel, where we get that bet $100, get $20 back. Jeff, lot cooking this week. And can't wait to see you again on Tuesday when we get to recap it all on It's Official. We're going to have our work cut out for us finding 5 topics.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Limiting to 5 topics.
Well, yeah, I tell you what, this is a unique week for me because I don't have to go to the races on Saturday because there is no racing here on Saturday. Yeah. So I can sit at home and evaluate all the other races during the day around the country on Saturday, and then look forward to a great day of racing on Sunday. Want to see the big cap, want to see the Niso, see how he performs up the standard, hopefully. And so it's going to be a fun weekend of racing for me, and we will have lots to talk about, as you mentioned, on Tuesday on our It's Official podcast.
That'll wrap it up for today. Good luck, everybody, and we will see you on Tuesday.